Did the fact that I was a high functioning alcoholic, the fact that I wasn't, sleeping in a gutter or, just really off the rails, did that make it hard for you did you do some comparison? I know as the drinker, I would compare myself to a gutter drunk and say, well, I'm clearly not an alcoholic. Did you do any comparisons like that?
Yeah, I think I did a lot of comparisons. I mean, my father was an alcoholic, but my parents were divorced when I was 2, and my sister was 8, so she lived in the middle of the addiction a lot more than I did. But my dad lived in the same town. My mom had, custody of us most of the time, but he would come and get us, and sometimes he would come to get us for his weekend, and he would be drunk. So there would be arguments, and from the conversations I've had with my mom, there was physical violence, and he would be angry, and so when I looked at those situations, like, you didn't show up to the kids' activities drunk. You were never like forgetting them at things. You weren't hanging out all the time. Like my mom would say, like he and his friends would hang out in one that they liked to fiddle around with cars. They were all mechanics, and so they would like hang out in the garage and drink beer, and then he would get home really, really late. So you never did those sort of things. So there was comparison, because I felt like I was maybe thinking, wow, well, at least he's not like that. And so how can I really say that drinking is a problem? Because he's home in the evening, he's working. I mean, we don't miss payments to, creditors. We're not driving broken down cars because we're functioning, and he's making money. We're working together, owning the bakery. And sometimes I would say these things to my mom and no diss on her, but she would say, well, there isn't physical violence. And this was like a long time ago, like before I think the real throes of alcohol and addiction really kicked in. But she would say, you're not getting hit, you're not having physical violence, and you're getting into arguments. But there was no conversation. We talk about it now, emotional safety. Like there wasn't that. I didn't feel connected. So there was a lot of comparison, because things were on the outside fine to everybody else, and to you. I think you thought things were fine, but I didn't feel like it was fine inside.
So you didn't have what we now call emotional safety. We at the time didn't know to call it that. Mm-hmm. You didn't have that. You also didn't have some of the extremes of alcoholic behavior that you witnessed as a child and that you heard your mother talk about as a child. Mm-hmm. But you did have the instincts that told you everything's not okay. I walk around on eggshells. I don't know that you knew your nervous system was in activation. That probably is something that we understand now that didn't understand then. Mm-hmm. But you've got this compare and contrast thing going on. How did you get over the hump to saying, okay, so there's not physical violence and so the bills are getting paid, but this is still not okay. How did the scale tip so that you got to the point where you're like, I deserve to feel peaceful and contented and relatively happy and calm in my relationship, even if all this bad stuff isn't happening and there is some good stuff?
Well,
was it a matter of time?
I think it was a matter of time, but I think that it was a matter of, honestly, I think what gave me the courage was that I wanted better for our kids. I didn't want them to grow up in this kind of house. And that's exactly, like you and I have talked about this on the podcast. I had like higher expectations of you, I think, than you were aware of when we met in college. I really kind of chose you because you were in a program that demanded grades and accountability and smarts. So I never expected this sort of situation to be my situation, where I was locked into a relationship with 4 kids with an addict. So I think I knew that they deserved better. There would be times that you had to leave
I mean, both of your grandparents passed away and you had to go out of state to funerals, and just the levity of the house felt so much better. And the way they would respond and react around you, and I could just see it. So I think that I just had to kind of, they gave me the courage, but I had to say, this is not okay for me, this is not okay for the kids. I was anxious, and it was starting to come out in other areas of my life where I had a lot of anxiety.
And when you started saying this is not okay, then you had to start dealing with my gaslighting, telling you, oh, look around you. We live in a nice house. We live in a nice community. The cars are paid off. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Can't you see that this is a nice, happy family?
Right.
Did you swat that away pretty easily? Or was that also another, challenge to listening to your instincts and demanding peace and emotional safety?
Well, I kind of felt
Because
like,
I'm a gaslighting asshole. I mean, let's be honest.
well, I think that, yeah, I had to kind of just take that in and say, well, that might be the case, but that's not making a happy house. So, I had to start, and there were a lot of areas where I didn't really always believe what you were trying to tell me. So I do feel like I had that in my corner. But I had to just ignore and say, even if we have all this stuff, who cares? It doesn't matter what stuff we have, it's how we feel.
Yeah. What's your message for the people that come behind us? And let me frame that question a little bit. We work with the partners of high-functioning alcoholics almost exclusively. There's some people that have gone off the rails. We work with the partners of high-functioning alcoholics and the high-functioning alcoholics themselves. And occasionally I get accused of, oh, you think you're so good that you use that word high-functioning. You're no better than any of the rest of us. And I agree. I was eventually going to end up in the gutter. There's no question about it. Alcoholism's a progressive disease. But the fact is that when we meet people, they're usually at a state where, from the outside appearances, things are still being held together, and they're in, fake it till you make it mode to a large degree. And so there is this conundrum of, on the one hand, it's terrible, and on the other hand, it looks pretty good. What's your advice to people that are stuck in that situation, and maybe their alcoholic is gaslighting them and telling them, look around, everything's fine?
Well, I think just what I said at the very end, like, it doesn't matter the things you have, it matters how you feel and how you're feeling and how you're acting and how you're, behaving in your relationship in your day-to-day life, to not like upset the apple cart or bring things to the attention of the addict, to like evaluate all of that and say, is it worth it? Is it worth, just going on with this situation where I feel like the kids are miserable and I'm miserable and we don't want to be around this anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I'm just gonna add this too. I think a piece of advice I got was, because I had talked to somebody about like, I'm afraid to do this, or I'm afraid to bring up that. And they said, it doesn't matter what you bring up. They're going to be angry because they're addicted and it's projection onto you from themselves. Like, so it doesn't really matter what you do. So you can't really try to work around people for very long, because eventually they're going to start hating the way that you're always a yes man. Like there's never going to be enough of you to give in the way you behave. So you have to just think about you and the family and the mental health of the family.
Another way that it's a challenge dealing with a high-functioning alcoholic is because not only are we sharing all this evidence of success with you, that's also locked into our own brains. So the idea that we're going to believe you that you live in an emotionally unsafe environment or that you deserve more, that's a pretty far-fetched belief. Right. Unfortunately, terribly unfortunately, I wish.
Yeah, but you have to understand that and believe it and accept it. As much as they'll gaslight you and tell you no, everything is great. If you're feeling it, it's real.
So what's for lunch?
Oh, for my work.
We just watched you make it, but I don't know that the camera picked up on what it was.
Oh, some of your favorites.
Do tell.
Some barley and brown rice that was left over.
Now people really believe we're living high on the hog. Barley and brown rice?
Barley and brown rice.
Wow.
Only there was quinoa. Some sauteed zucchini and bell peppers with Parmesan cheese.
Ah,
And then, just a few other things.
way to keep it nutritious. Well done.
No.
I think our social media manager tells us that people like our, what I like to call our Lenny episodes. Lenny from Law and Order, where he would go and try to interview somebody while they were unloading boxes on a loading dock, and he's asking them questions about murder, and they can't, even though the questions are about murder, they can't stop unloading boxes long enough to talk to him.
The murder of their coworker or boss. They're still like, I got a job to do.
So thanks for doing another surprise Lenny episode. I also want to, while we're being honest, we do these, our videos are all one take. We almost never do a second take, but your idiot husband forgot to push the record button, and I was looking for the time, like, how long is this thing gone? And I realized, oh, I didn't record. So this one was technically still a one take, but it was 2 times through the rundown. So thanks for sharing all of your wisdom,
well,
Sheri.
it's hard to remember what I said the first time.
You didn't do it exactly the same.
I did not, I know that.
But it was authentic, that's for sure. If you'd like to hear more of our opinionated ramblings, please check out our Untoxicated podcast.
And if you're more of the reading type, go to soberandunashamed.com.
If you're picking up what we're laying down, you might be ready to find your tribe. Check out shoutsobriety.org or echoesofrecovery.org. We get what you're going through. You've got this, and we've got you.